Hi everyone, welcome back to the Las Vegas UK channel. Today we're talking casino hosts. Essentially, a casino host is there to make sure you as a player and as a gambler have a fantastic time at the casino. They can do everything from booking your hotel room, to setting up free play for you, to setting up food and beverage credit for you. They can organise limo transfers to and from the airport to wherever you're staying. They can get you a cabana for the day if that's what you're looking for. They can make spa appointments for you. They can get you tables at restaurants that otherwise would be sold out. A casino host really is there to look after you as a casino player. They're more than just a booking agent, so don't get confused and think, oh, all they're going to do is set me up with all these bookings. But they're also there to look after you at the end of your stay. So it's the casino host that may take care of certain items on your bill, for example. If you've been playing well in the casino, they may take off your food bill, or they may comp you off a massage at the spa. They may review charges in terms of resort fees, and so on and so forth. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in this video, but essentially that's what a casino host actually is. All right, so this is like probably the number one question about hosts. Should I have a host, and if so, how do I get one? Well, I think I mentioned this in my last video, but really, in my experience, and all of this is based on my experience, so I'm sure there'll be people who disagree with me in the comments. That's absolutely fine. I'm purely basing this on what I found, and this is purely also based on the Las Vegas Strip, okay? So some of the figures may be slightly different, especially if you're heading downtown. And also remember, they're gonna differ from property to property too. You're not gonna have the same experience with a casino host at Excalibur as you are at the Wynn, for example. But as a ballpark figure, I like to think as a slot player that really you ought to be aiming for at least $10,000 a day coin in on a slot machine. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but coin in. We need to think about what coin in actually is and how that works. So coin in is the number of times that you recycle money through a machine, okay? So let's say you have $100 and you put $100 into a machine and you're playing, just for ease of maths, a dollar machine. Every time you hit the button, you're getting $1 worth of coin in, okay? So you could hit that button 100 times and that's $100 of coin in. That doesn't mean that you're going to have to lose $100 because every other spin you may win. You may win $2, you may win $100, you may win $1,000 depending on the machine. So your bankroll is very much different to your coin in. To give you an idea, coin in for 10K, I would say that you want to be looking at playing probably on average, and again, this is purely based on my experience and what I like to do, $5 and up a spin. One of the most efficient ways to generate coin in through a slot machine is to play the old reel, 3-reel style slots. Things like double diamond, triple diamond. Some of those you can also, if your bankroll only allows a moderate amount of play, let's say. So maybe if your bankroll is say $600 a day, I would consider playing those with 1 credit. Now, quite often you would never tell a slot player not to play max, but in this case, quite often on those old school reel machines, the payout is no better by playing 2 credits. It's just purely everything is doubled. There's very rarely now, with the older machines, there's very rarely an additional bonus. With the new machines there is, and you might therefore want to be considering playing max, but just to keep things simple. That's a really efficient way of generating coin in because the loss on those machines, the hold for the casino on those machines is relatively low. Now this is purely, this 10K is based on slot play. If you're playing video poker, you're gonna have to play a whole lot more because the hold on a video poker machine can be as little as 0.5%, 1%, whereas the hold on the average slot machine is around 10 to 12%. So again, bear that in mind. It's partly dependent on what you're playing. The reason I say aim for 10K is because in my experience, when I was playing maybe 7.5 to 9K a day, and this is when I was sort of first visiting Vegas, I didn't attract the attention of a host. It was once I hit that sort of 10K, and this was at Caesar's Palace, so a fairly highbrow, if you want, casino. Around about that 10K is when I started to get noticed by a host. Now, remember, as I said, that's 10K a day. So if your trip is 5 days, you're looking at 50K coin in overall. So you need to just bear that in mind when you're looking at whether you're going to be eligible for a casino host. The other thing to think about is you may have days where you don't play at all and other days where you get 20K. I found, particularly with M Life, where I now tend to focus my play, and to an extent the Cosmopolitan as well, it's more of a trip average they're looking at. Whereas when I was at Caesars, it was definitely more of a daily average. So if you're playing at Caesars, I would focus on doing 10K a day. If you're playing at Cosmo or M Life, as of 2020, as of currently, I would say you can mix that play up. You don't necessarily need to do it on a daily basis. And therefore, you could also perhaps have one day 8K coin in, and another day 12K. Don't just play for comps, don't just play for coin in, still play what you enjoy, okay? You could have a terrible day and you could lose that bankroll. Don't then go and spend the next days and the next days just to make your 10K. It's not worth it, okay? The other thing to consider is how much coin in can you get from the average bankroll. Using the method that I mentioned, which is mainly playing 3 real slots if you're trying to generate coin in, I would say for around about a $600 bankroll, you're probably looking at about 3K. So you'd probably coin in to 4 maybe. So you're probably looking at around about $1,800, $2,000 bankroll a day to generate 10K comfortably. Of course, you can have days where you could do 10K coin in really, really easily, no problem, with hardly any bankroll at all. And you can have days where it goes horrendously wrong and you lose everything, you've done 2K. That's just how it works in the world of casinos. So you are going to have to bet a substantial amount. It's not that easy to generate that amount of coin in. And you really do need to, if you're playing for comps, you need to think strategy. I also like to mix up with some $20 line machines, maybe Clio 2, Diamond Queen, which are slightly more volatile, but that's because I like to play them. And actually, you know, if you're not really focused on just getting a host because you want a host or because you think you want to maximize free play, you want to maximize your comps, play what you want to play. If you don't see a host and a host doesn't approach you, that doesn't mean that you can't get any comps. I mean, you're still going to get decent offers with free rooms. You're still going to get some free play, some resort credit, and hell, you're probably going to be able to get some comps at the back end. So really, unless, I guess that leads on to something else that I'm going to mention, really, unless you need a host, perhaps it's not really worth chasing one. But anyway, so I've rambled on quite a lot there, but that, in my view, is really how you get a casino host and how you attract the attention of a casino host. As I mentioned, it's going to differ from casino to casino. I think downtown, I don't have a lot of experience with downtown Vegas because I don't tend to play there, but I think downtown you're probably going to get away with smaller numbers and attracting the attention of the host. However, you know, based on the strip, 10K, I think, for me, is the sweet spot. So what happens when you hit that 10K number that we spoke about? Well, what will happen usually is you will be playing perhaps at a slot machine. This may not happen on the first day. It may take a few days, but you're playing and you'll almost have like someone just hover over your shoulder or maybe even tap you on the shoulder. I don't know if they do that at the moment with all the coronavirus stuff going around. But anyway, you'll generally be approached by a host. So if your play warrants a host, the host will find you. And they'll often call you by name. The reason for that being that you'll be playing with a player's card, because how else would they track you? And they'll be able to look that information up from the machine you're using and the player's card you're using. And they'll quite often introduce themselves. They'll quite often give you their card, and they'll basically tell you to check in with them if there's anything you need. They'll probably explain to you they're now your host and they're there to take care of you. That's one way. That's how I've met a lot of my hosts. The other way, and actually this is the way I met my host most recently at Mandalay Bay, is through checkout. So I'd played quite heavily at Mandalay Bay. I hadn't been approached by a casino host. But what I would always recommend doing is, even if you don't have a host, you're not approached by a host, go and speak to one on duty before you check out. You can do that in many ways. You can go to the host on duty office. So at Mandalay Bay, there's a host office, and you can go in there. Anyone can go in there and ask them to review your play. If there isn't a host office for some reason, ask at the player's desk is probably the best bet. You'll often also find a host on duty in most high limit rooms. So what I did is I went to speak to the host on duty in the office in Mandalay Bay and asked them to review my bill based on my play. Now, this was the first time I'd stayed at Mandalay Bay. I was there on a comp based on my MLife play from elsewhere. So I already had a room comp. I was actually staying at the Delano. I'd already had free play and food and beverage credit. But I'd used my free play, obviously. I'd used all my food and beverage credit, and I charged additional to the room. So I wanted to find out basically if they could comp off what else I charged to my room based on my play. So remember, that's another piece of key advice. Charge everything to your room. They can only comp off or give you for free anything on your room bill. So I went into the office, I spoke to the host, she looked at my play, she agreed that my play was substantial or sufficient enough, if you will, to comp off my bill. So she cleared all my charges on my bill, and then she gave me her card and said, next time you stop by or next time you're wanting to come to Vegas, send me an email and let me arrange everything for you. The advantage now of that, obviously, is really that she now sets everything up for me in advance. I don't need to worry about it. I don't even have to log on to the MLife site myself. I can just send her a text message or an email. She'll arrange everything. So that's the other way, really, that a host will approach you. So one method, you don't really have to do anything. You're just playing at the machine. That tended to happen to me mainly at the Cosmopolitan. It happened at Caesars Properties as well. Or seek one out at the end of your trip. And irrespective of if you're going to have a host assigned, remember, it's always worth seeking out a host at the end of your trip, even if you just ask at the player's desk. And even if you don't get assigned a host, they may be able to take care of some of your bill, as long as you feel you've played enough. With MLife in particular, you can easily track how much you're playing and you're coining through your MLife account. If you log in, it will tell you your coin in. So you'll know if you've anywhere near hitting that 10K number. Maybe you've done 8K a day. That's probably going to get you some stuff comped off. Maybe even 6K a day is probably going to get you some stuff comped off. Hell, at 3-4K a day, you can probably get at least the resort fees off. So always check in with a host at the end of your trip. So I'm always asked about, why bother? What are the key advantages of a host? And I've sort of covered a little bit of this already earlier on in the video when I talked about the fact that they now can book me in a really nice room. They can give me my free play, my food and beverage credit. But you may say, well, I already get all that. I already can get free rooms through my MLife account. I already can get food and beverage credit with that. And also I can get free play with that. What's the point of a host? Well, in my experience, I'm going to just give you an example based on me here and my play. So I would say at the moment I'm averaging maybe 15K a day coin in, so a bit more than the 10K, but I'm by no means a whale. I'm by no means got a massive bankroll, and I'm by no means spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in Vegas. But what I've found is by having a casino host, one of the key advantages is I'm often getting a better room than I can get comped through my corporate offer. So if I log onto MLife, I'll use Mandalay Bay as the example because that's one of my most recent bookings. I may be able to get up to a entry-level suite comp. I can't even remember. But my host there can book me into a penthouse, okay, which I wouldn't be able to book myself. So that's an example of what a host can do, bump you further up on the ranking of rooms. Also, my offer may be for a few hundred in free play. She'll get me 200-300 extra on top of that. Same with the resort credit. And in fact, I think with the resort credit, it's that can really be bumped up substantially more. My resort credit has been more than doubled by a host before. So that is a real advantage and something that you're not going to be able to do yourself, something you're not going to be able to get just through your corporate offers. So that is one major advantage of having a host. Another advantage is probably the fact that everything is just made so easy for you. I am a very lazy person by nature. I like to just have everything sorted out for me. And, having a host that enables that to happen. Everything will be booked. If there's a problem, you're probably going to be getting it sorted out with a little bit more priority. If you have a host, you're going to be seen as a key player for the casino. They're not going to want to annoy you. They're not going to want to upset you. So if there's a problem with the room, or you turn up and the hotel is overbooked, you're probably less likely to get sort of walked to another hotel. Bumped was the word I was looking for. I nearly said comped. That's less likely to happen because you're seen as a valuable player. So that's another real advantage for me. Another one is probably the little extras that you can get. So maybe I want to go and watch the Golden Knights at T-Mobile, or maybe I really want to have a cabana in the summer around the pool. A host may even be able to comp those for you up front. I've had tickets comped up front before. I've had meals comped up front before. Like I said, usually the process is charge everything to your room, but upfront comps are really nice to have because you know they're secured and you're not going to get turned down at the end of your stay if you have a terrible stay and you don't play as much because you're ill the whole trip, or you lose your bankroll really quickly. A good host won't just desert you if you lose your bankroll really quickly. It's all about building up a relationship, and that's another advantage of having a host and having a good relationship with the host. You can build a relationship up with them over time, and therefore they will look after you irrespective of what happens on the odd trip. So you can go to Vegas with the thought of, okay, I'm going to play as much as I can. You get really unlucky, you lose, your bankroll doesn't go far enough, you only make half your normal coin in. The host isn't just going to desert you, they're probably going to comp everything off still. Yes, you may be overcomped, but they're still going to look after you next time. Whereas if you do that without a host, you could really screw up your offers, or your offers are going to take a little bit longer to recover. So that's another advantage. Okay, are there any disadvantages to having a host? Well, yes, I think there are. I think that you have to bear in mind that you are probably going to feel like you have to play, perhaps more than you would have done if you'd booked an offer yourself. The way I look at this is I always try and think of, okay, I've got my room, I've got my free play, I've got my food and beverage credit. I've earned that already based on my past play. What I need to do is play sufficiently to maintain that with my host. I find that takes the pressure off a little bit. It's not perfect. You are going to feel pressure probably because you're playing for someone and you know that their sort of income perhaps is related to you and how much you play. But that's a disadvantage because you definitely feel pressure to play more and to make sure you put those hours in at the casino. Which is fine if you're winning because you're probably loving being at the casino, but when you're on those trips where you just can't win anything or you've been losing for hours on end and you still haven't made that coin in, that can be annoying. A kind of link to that is the fact that I sometimes feel like I need to do a certain coin in a day, even if I don't want to gamble. And then am I playing machines that are perhaps less fun? Like I mentioned, the single reel double diamonds, they're not the funnest machines to play. And am I playing them just for the sake of it to generate coin in? Probably yes. And that can be pretty much, pretty boring. And you're also going to be thinking at that point, have I got a gambling problem? I'm not saying I do, but if you're just playing a machine for the sake of it, that's not good. So I guess you need to think about that too. That's also a disadvantage because everyone thinks everything about having a casino host is great, but there are pitfalls, and those sort of two, I think, are the biggest ones. Another disadvantage of having a host is you can get bad hosts and you can have a really sort of bad relationship with the host. I've had it before, I'm not going to say where, but I've had a really poor relationship with the host and it's kind of ruined that experience for me, that holiday, that vacation for me, and it's ruined that hotel and casino for me too, to the point where I never go back there. So if you really love a place and you love visiting and then suddenly you have a really bad experience with the host, I don't know, that could put you off going back. So I would see that as another disadvantage. I guess the final disadvantage too is you could be disappointed because you could think that you're going to get a load of stuff comped off at the end of your stay. You've played really well in your opinion, and it just might not be the case. Remember, every time you book a comp room or eat at a restaurant, you're using some of your comps up. So the room has a comp rate attached to it. Maybe it's $200 a day. So before you have anything else comped, including even the resort fee, you've got to play off the room for the day. So quite often players will get caught out, particularly if the comp value of a room changes. I've seen examples of this happening before, particularly at places like Caesars, where The values of a comp room that overlooks the fountains of the Bellagio is slightly more expensive than a strip view, for example. And people have been caught out that way. And then when you ask for your comps from your host at the back end, they basically say, well, no, you can't have them. You haven't earned them. You're overcomped. So you have to be prepared for that. That could happen. That equally can happen if you don't have a host and you just approach the players desk and you ask for a host on duty to look at your play. You can just be turned down. So you have to be willing to accept rejection, go in with an open mind. Don't take it personally, but be prepared to be told no. It can happen quite easily. You can also unfortunately have experiences where you get told no by one host and then go back an hour later and a new host on duty will comp off everything. So it's always sometimes worth bearing in mind, if you get told no the first time, don't be afraid to ask again, maybe later in the day. But be prepared to say no. And also, I guess to add to that, make sure that anything you charge to your room, you are willing to pay for, because it may not be comped off at the end. You may end up paying for it. Remember too, you're always going to be paying tax and you're always going to be paying tips. So those items cannot be comped. And other hotels have different reasons why they can't comp things off. So I think, for example, at M Life, you can't use express comps on retail. So there are rules in place at different places surrounding comps. So just be careful with that. All right, so I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. You can also leave a comment below if you wish, if you want to ask me any questions or if you want to get in touch with me. Leave a comment, or you can find me on Twitter. The Twitter address is @LasVegasUK. That's the easiest way to get hold of me. And if you've got any questions at all, whether it be about casino hosts or you've got any ideas for future videos or general Vegas stuff that you just want to chat about Vegas, give me a follow on there. I'll be more than happy to help you. Thanks for watching.